Zaire was the most bizarre event I've ever covered before or since. Here we were in Central Africa, and with the most vicious regime, one of the most vicious regimes that Africa's ever seen, presided over by President Mobutu. I was taken, along with all the other media, on a tour of the May the 20th stadium where the fight was being held, and up against, there was one wall, a whole wall, high and wide, full of bullet holes. And we said, what is that? And they said, well, I'm afraid President Mobutu had the dissidents and anybody else he didn't like put up against that wall and shot. So that's the sort of environment we went into. The people of Zaire were wonderful. They were very warm, very friendly. They spoke two languages, of course, I think Swahili and French. So there was a bit of a language problem. But of course, one phrase that everybody could understand was Ali Boumaye, which literally translated meant Ali, kill him. They were so pro-Ali and anti-Foreman. They hated Foreman because when he arrived in the country, he got off the plane and he had his German Shepherd dog with him. But of course, that was anathema to the Zaire, because when the Belgians colonized the country and ruled it, one of the things they did was to let loose German Shepherd dogs on the population if they ever got out of hand. Foreman back then was not a very nice guy. He's not the avuncular, Buddha-like figure he is today, all smiles and jokes. He was a very somber, sullen, rude guy. He hated the media. So we didn't like him very much. He was 25 years of age. He'd had 40 fights. He'd won them all, 37 by knockout. Ali, as you know, had been exiled for 3 years and made a comeback. He was 32 years of age, and a lot of expert opinion felt that not only would Ali be beaten, but they feared for his health. In fact, some went as far as to say he might get killed in there by this young man. We couldn't get a telephone call back to our offices out of Zaire for love nor money. It just didn't work. So we sent our copy back by telex. And we'd go in the telex office, and there were no telex operators there because they were all asleep. And so we complained to the press chief, who had a wonderful name, Chimpumpu wa Chimpumpu. The complaint went right up to Mobutu, and he issued an edict. And it said very simply, the next telex operator found asleep when he should be on duty will be shot. So there they all were from then on, beavering away like crazy. The only problem was, very often they used to send the copy to the wrong place. And Neil Allen of the Times, his preview of the fight, 2,000 words, ended up in a Cambridgeshire fertiliser plant, not in the Times office. None of us had ever been at ringside for a fight at 4 a.m. And of course there were 50,000, at least 50,000 people in the stadium. The atmosphere was electric. I was the only British boxing writer to tip Ali to beat Foreman. And I thought his tactics would be to dance around the ring and tire Foreman out that way. And of course he did for a couple of rounds, but even Ali knew that he couldn't keep up that pace in that heat at his age, so he adopted what became known as the rope-a-dope. He went with his back to the ropes, which were pretty loose, and he allowed Foreman to beat up on him, particularly to his body. But he's very clever. Ali was very clever. He avoided most of those shots to the head by slipping them, just moving his head to side, but he took a tremendous pounding to his body. And as the fight progressed, you could see Foreman, it was like somebody had turned off a tap. All his energy was draining out of him. Ali had bided his time, and when he really knew that Foreman was totally spent, then he sprung into action. And I will never forget the final two punches, the left to the jaw followed by the right cross, and Foreman spinning round and then dropping to the canvas on his back. It was astonishing scenes and an astonishing end, and of course Ali milked it for all it was worth. I've covered, I don't know how many world title fights on every continent, And that fight in Zaire is embedded in my memory. It is the greatest, most bizarre event I've ever covered.